Howdy, it's tubalcain again, and it's Saturday in October and winter is coming. This is part 6 of my belt sander build. Be sure and watch the previous 5 parts, and there's still quite a bit to do, and there'll be several parts following this. So let's get to work and I'll show you what I'm going to do today. Well, off camera while you were sleeping, I installed this switch. I talked about that the other day, and that's just a little piece of angle iron that is fastened onto these end bolts. I do need to paint this yet, but you talk about a struggle, mein Kampf. Getting all those wires and connectors into this little box here was like putting 10 pounds of manure in a 5-pound bag. Well, I had talked about rubber feet, and these are the originals, and they're just harder than a rock, and there was 2 different sizes. So looking through my junk bin, I did come up with, and I was surprised, I didn't know they were in there, but here are 4 nice feet, still semi-resilient, although I'm sure they're used. I have no idea where I got them, but with the hardware here, I think I'll go ahead and assemble these real quickly, and I'll be right back with you. You don't need to see that. I think that cut down on the noise and the vibration just a little bit. Now I also use a singular drop of safety lock on each one of the screws. Now here's something I've taken to doing. I know it's wasteful and I know I will be criticized for it, but I would be criticized for anything that I do. But I have over 1 million fasteners in stock, so now when I get these fasteners out, dig them out, which takes quite a while. Matter of fact, it takes longer than going to Ace Hardware, but anyway, I bring out some extras. And then I throw them away. Why? Because I will invariably drop one or lose one or whatever, and then I got to dig again. So I'd rather take these and throw them away as excess. I'm not going to put them back in stock. It's too blame much work. And I got rid of 500,000 fasteners at my meet and greet, and they went to Texas with Palmer. What I'm going to tell you now is in reference to this video, so make sure that you watch it if you have not already. But that is a video that deals with the grime and grit and corruption that gets inside of an open frame motor. Now this is an open frame motor, and I know I'm not following my own advice. And the other prototype that I had, and I showed you in the first video, is a closed motor, so the grit can't get in there. But I want to give you just a brief but dramatic demonstration of what happens to the grit that is coming off of this as it's being used. It will be drawn, well, it has to go around this guard now. I put this guard on, and the air gets sucked in here and exits out here. So let me show you what happens. The purpose of the air being drawn through the motor, of course, by the fan, there's a fan in there, is to cool the motor. Now watch this. You can see that the air and the grit is being drawn into the motor, and much of it being deposited in there. Now watch this on the other end where the air exits. Of course, it pretty much blew the candle out because there's quite a lot of air moving. Alright, enough on that. This is the original Kalamazoo, and this is called the Platen. The Platen is just a stiff surface that the belt pushes up against so that you can grind on it. Some people like to work on the sweet spot here that is unsupported, and in fact some sanders probably don't even have a Platen, but I'm going to put one on here, and here's how I'll do it. As I said on another video, I consider this extremely dangerous. This is a cutting edge, probably just as dangerous as a bandsaw blade on the edge, and this is all going to be guarded eventually. But to prevent injury to myself, now I have to remember to unplug this thing when I work on it. So it's dead. Alright, what I'm going to use for the Platen is a piece of angle iron, and this is, well, it's 3/16 thick. I wish, there I am wishing again, that it was only 1/8 inch thick, or that it was just heavy sheet metal like 16 gauge, but this is what I got, and I've already cut it to length, and it's 8 inches long. This is 2 by 3 inch angle iron. I think I'll also be using a piece of this as a tool rest, which will be what I'm doing after this. So this video is the platen and the tool rest. Alright, that's going to go in there like this, and this part bolting up against the plate right here where you see my fingers. Well, right now this is too wide, so I need to rip this on the bandsaw, but I need to determine how wide, and I will do that by just taking a piece of scrap here and measuring. I gotta turn this a little bit. From here to the post, and I'll cut the angle iron that size, and that's going to be 1 5/8. Well, there it is. Let's put it in place. And you know what? You talk about good planning. Just comes right to the edge, or is it strictly providence? And that's about the position of it. It's clamped into position, and I think you can see better right here how it just happened to work out virtually flush. Now, a couple things I need to do. Number one, I need to saw away, I'm marking it right now, and I think I'll put that at an angle like that. So all of this is waste stock. Why am I removing that? Because that will interfere with the tool rest later on. I learned that from the prototype. That's the nice thing about making a prototype. Now, swinging the machine just a little bit, I'm going to use 2 bolts. One probably about here, and one much farther down, probably under the pad of the C-clamp. Those will be 1/4 inch or 5/16, haven't decided yet. And then I will elongate them into a slot, so this just has a little minor wiggle room adjustment to and from the belt. Follow what I'm doing? And I'm going to do most of that off camera. This is the tool rest, also made out of angle iron, from the prototype, and the one that I make for this will be similar, if not identical, but it's going to mount right about here. Now you can see why I need clearance for it here, and that this needs to be cut off. So this will go right up against the platen and the belt, but farther down. And that's the reason that I'm trimming this. So I will trim this, and I will drill some holes, and I'll do that all off camera. Be back in a few minutes. I know it's dark, but I'm in the middle of a power outage. Hope it's brief. And the lights just came back on. It was brief. That happens very, very seldom with Commonwealth Edison. It's just almost strange. So there, you see it blink? So whatever happened here, it's not over. Well, the power just came back on. It was off for about 90 minutes. My wife was down by the bank, and she said that they saw a flash, almost like lightning, and a transformer blew near the Dairy Queen there, but they must have got it fixed, and it just came back on. I could hear the neighbor Generac roaring like crazy. Well, that's got nothing to do with the price of fish. Alright, I've got this tentatively set up. Now, I've got quite a distance here between the belt and the end, more so than the prototype right here. I don't know if that's going to hurt anything or not, but the reason for that is that, remember, I put the post here on the other side of the plate as compared to this one, and that moved everything over. So that gives me a little change in plans also on the tool rest here. So I was going to use a tool rest just like this, made out of the same angle iron, but now it will not have the reach that I need from the piece of angle iron that I have. So I have to go to plan B, but I did want a tool rest about like that, but I do want it to come all the way across. Now if this would be objectionable, another piece could be made up that would give clearance there so that you could get in there with your work. But looking over here at the Kalamazoo, I'll show you how they made theirs. What I'm pointing out here is that sometimes we want to get some work and we want to work right into a corner like this. And with the Kalamazoo, you really can't do that on either side because we got Platen showing here, we got Platen showing here. So that if we wanted to get into the corner, I would have to get up above that to the unsupported part, and in fact I often do that. So I guess that's not going to be a problem. Let me show you what the Delta belt sander looks like also. Over here on the 6-inch Delta belt sander, you can see that the Platen here is not right on the corner, and I really can't work right in here. So that's always been a bit of a problem if we want to get into a corner. So I'm not going to worry about it on my my sander, because it looks like most of the sanders are built that way, with the exception of the 1x42s, which will be the subject of many videos in the future. Well, there's the Platen. Two things I wanted to show you. Number one, I did elongate those holes, so I had some adjustment. And the other thing, just to prove a point here, that it may be irrelevant, but I never met a piece of angle iron that was square. There's always a spot that's unsquare, or sometimes it's usually usually a lot worse than this. So let me put that on, and you can see now that I will have some adjustment to and from the belt. So I'm debating here now on the tool rest. Now this is the tool rest off of the prototype, and it was mounted on this side. Now I do remember on the prototype having interference here with the motor. So in order to avoid that, and I want the tool rest to be down fairly low. I don't want it way up here because I lose a lot of belt working space. So I have decided I'm going to mount it on the other side over here. But of course it's going to be a mirror image of this. So let me go ahead and lay that out. Again, that's the, what did I say, 3-inch by 2-inch by 3/16 thick. So let me lay that out, and I'll show you before I cut it out. And then it'll be fastened on this side. Okay, if this is a left, this is now a right. Maybe I said mirror image, but I don't know. So it's laid out here. You can see I'll cut it off here. That's still a good piece that I'll save. This is waste stock. I'm going to trim it right there also. That'll be waste stock. Eventually there'll be a slot here. So let me go over to the bandsaw and do that work. By the way, I made this a little bit wider here than what this one was. But that could be made just about any way you want. Now I've tried to avoid welding here, but if you didn't have angle iron this size, and you probably don't, this certainly could be made as a weldment. And in fact I did do that on one of the prototype ones, but I had to grind some of the welds off. But you know, it can be done that way also. But I changed this way. I'll be back in 1 second after I saw this out. Well, it's 2 seconds later, and there it is. I'm a fast cutter. Now one more thing here is I need to put the notch in here so that it has an adjustment. Also some place to bolt this. This is of course too narrow. So what I have planned on doing is taking a piece of angle iron, and this is what, 3/4 inch angle iron, and it'll be fastened onto there. It would be nice to just weld it on, but I'm trying to stay away from welding right now. So I'm going to have to put a couple of screws, perhaps flathead screws in there, do some tapping. Not sure yet, but that'll be on there and it'll serve a double function. One, an anchor for this, and number two, remember there's probably going to be a cover here for the guard, and that is where the magnet or the clasp or the bolt or whatever it is, where it closes the closure. Alright, let me go on over to the mill and get this groove put in there. There's the slot. I've officially decided now, this is 3/4 inch angle iron, 6 inches long. It'll be put on there like that, flush with the edge of the platen, and there'll be two, I think I'll use, I'm going to use socket head cap screws from this side and tapped into the platen. Rather thin for that, but with some Loctite on it, it's not going anyplace. The angle iron is securely fastened by two of these 1024 by 3/8 cap screws. You know, I had a whole pillbox of those for some reason, and they go in from this side, and you can see just a little bit, or maybe you can't. They were just the right length, but that's not showing up. There it is. And I didn't have to cut the screws off. It's just the right length. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I have this temporarily clamped in place, and I need to just lay out. And I'll just do it with a Sharpie where I want that. And you know what? It probably would have been just fine if I used a little wider angle iron here, perhaps a 1 inch instead of this 3/4 inch, because this bolt, well, anyway, I got a lot of extra length here that isn't necessary. But you only learn things like this by making the project, or making a mock-up, or making a prototype. And certainly it could be done with an assembly type of drawing if I was a drawing type of man. And then you can see what fits and what doesn't fit in the drawing. Or now I suppose in CAD. Well, there you have it. The tool rest looks pretty good, I have to admit. Again, there's many different ways this could be done. Possibly if I were to do it over, instead of having a bolt with a nut here, I would have a threaded hole in the angle iron here, but it's so thin that it really can't support even a fine thread. And this would be adjustable at different angles if one wanted, or even taken off, and the platen could be taken off also if one wanted to work in that sweet spot, but you do have the sweet spot here. So I did a lot in this particular part of the video series with the rubber feet and the platen and the tool rest and all of that, and even the switch. So that concludes this part of the video series. So stick around and watch the next part when it is available, and I will tackle the shields, the guards, starting with an upper guard like this, an upper wheel guard, which will be simple enough. The rest of it gets a little more complicated. I hope you're enjoying the build as much as I am doing the build. So this is tubalcain saying so long, and I'll see you in the next part.